All right. Hello, everyone. Time for chapter 4 of Jip. This is a short chapter, so I'm going to read chapter 5 at the same time, but I'm going to split them into two videos, so you can watch one video and read chapter 4, and then you can either choose to watch chapter 5 again or immediately, or just wait till later. Okay. I would like you to have through chapter 5 read by Thursday. Okay. All right, chapter 4. So you remember that we just left Jip. The man, the stranger had well, first of all, he'd seen him at the store, and then the next day he'd shown up right in the town poor farm's kitchen, acting like he was an old friend of Mrs. Lyman. And there's just something about him that really makes Jip uneasy. He seems like he's a weasel, a sneak, somebody who's trying to steal something, maybe. So, chapter 4, Beware the Stranger. That night, Jip waited until the meal was done and everyone had left the table before he took in Putt's supper. Then he settled himself down beside the cage. It wasn't so much that he wanted to confide in his friend as he needed Putt to help him sort out his own confusion. Why you reckon he wanted to know if Mr. Lyman was my pa or any kin? Everyone knows who Mr. Lyman is and that he don't have children, nor would he want a gypsy throwaway mistook for his own flesh and blood. So Jip is saying everybody knows that Mr. Lyman would not want me for a son. I'm just a thrown away kid. You're a good lad, Jip, gypsy or no. Well, you and me as friends, Putt, and I thank you for it. But what I want to know is why sudden like this stranger pops into town, asks me and Mr. Lyman nosy questions which we are too smart to answer, and next thing he's in the kitchen chatting up the missus like they was old-time acquaintances. Strange, Putt agreed. Powerful strange, I say. Did it strike you, Jip? Now mind, I never laid eyes on the feller, but did it come to mind that he might think he knows you? Well, he don't. I mean, from before, that he might know who you belonged to before you fell off that particular wagon. But I was a wee thing, still wobbly on my legs. How would anyone recognize me after all these years? And what if he did? Couldn't he have just said so straight out? Not sniff around like a hound on a trail? Strange, Putt repeated. If he thought he'd know me, Jip persisted, how come he don't ask right out? Tell me what he had in mind. It would seem the natural, honest thing. Well, whatever he is, he ain't honest, Putt. I shouldn't be in the way of judging my feller man, but there is something smells very far from fresh about that feller. It gives me the tremblies seeing him in our kitchen. You know something else? Mrs. Lyman never told the mister that he was here. No. Not a word passed down the length of that supper table tonight, Putt. She says to him like she does every time he goes to the village, "What is the news in town, Mr. Lyman?" And he says through his slurps, like always, "Not much, Mrs. Lyman." And she don't give him any news of the day here at all. Visitors is news, Putt. You can count on it. Visitors of any kind is news, and strangers is enough to call the county press. Not a word, eh? Not one little word, like she was keeping it secret that the stranger come, though he was drinking the tea and eating up the biscuits, and Mr. Lyman is sure to notice when he takes to counting stock. He is powerful particular about things that come missing in the count. You must be careful, Jip. I don't think the stranger is after Mrs. Lyman's biscuits. If he is, he must be near to starvation. They shared a laugh. Remember, Mrs. Lyman doesn't cook very well, or her cooking doesn't taste very good. They shared a laugh. Even to those, sorry, I just said that, it's going to tell you now. Even to those whose memory of tasty victuals was non-existent or near dead, Mrs. Lyman's cooking was a subject of scorn. So even if you didn't remember what good food tasted like, you still wouldn't like Mrs. Lyman's cooking. Still, how was Jip to be wary when he didn't know from what direction danger came, if at all? The tremblies persisted for a day or two. Once or twice he imagined a figure coming up the road, but there was no one, and life returned to its natural rhythms. But not quite. For the widow Wilkins and her children had stirred the still pond of the farm. No one could deny it. Jip felt responsible for Lucy and Toddy. He could safely leave the cub to her dam, so the baby to her mother, but the other two needed him. Lucy pretended to ignore him, but the little boy took to following him around like a puppy. One day, Jip was headed to the far pasture to see if any ewes had dropped lambs, so that ewes are female sheep that were going to have a baby, to see if any ewes had dropped lambs during the night, and he was startled by the sound of crying. He turned around. Small Toddy was lying on his face in the prickly grass, kicking and screaming. Jip ran back to him, alarmed. "Too fast!" the child screamed at him. "Too fast!" "Sorry, little feller, I didn't know you was trotting after." He picked the child up, brushed off the dirt, and swung him to his shoulders. "Here, that better?" The child shrieked with delight. "Get up!" he cried, smacking Jip's cheek with his small hand. "Get up, Jack!" Hold tight now. As he broke into a canter, he spotted Lucy. She had come running out of the house after her brother, he supposed, and was standing there watching, a scowl twisting her face. "Come on, Lucy!" Toddy yelled. "Yeah, come on. We're off to see if any lambs were born last night." She shrugged and turned as if to go in. "Ah, come with us." She didn't move, so he cantered away with Toddy clutching his hair and squealing with anxious joy. There was a new one, a little black-faced love, that bleated soaked ear and nudged its maw for milk. Jip swung Toddy gently to the ground. "Shh," he said. She don't know you yet." The ewe eyed Toddy with suspicion and began to move away, much to the distress of the lamb, who wobbled after her, crying as it went. Toddy made to run after them, but Jip caught him around the waist. "Wait here. See, she's a bit skittish. You're so big she's feared you might hurt her little one." "Me?" Toddy was thrilled with being big and scary. "Me?" "Yeah, you got to be still as a rabbit." All right, he whispered, putting his finger to his lips. "Just watch. See, that old sheep, she loves her baby just like your ma loves hers." Toddy stuck out his bottom lip. "Well, you're right. She does have a new one now, but that's the way with mothers. This ewe will have another next year. And this little one will be big then, like you, running and playing on his own." So Jip is understanding that Toddy might be a little upset that his mother is so focused on the baby now. There was a grunt behind them. Jip turned to see Lucy standing nearby. She had come after all. Was he supposed to pretend not to notice? Lucy was a contrary creature. He didn't want to start her off by saying the wrong thing. "All right, Toddy, that's one new lamb. Can you count one?" The child nodded solemnly, sticking up an index finger. "Good for you." Jip took his hand. "Now we'll walk quiet, so's not to scare them, and see if there be any more. This here one's just fine, ain't he? We can leave him to his ma for now." There were no more new ones that morning. The rest of the ewes seemed to be taking their own sweet time this year. Jip made a wide circle so as not to bump into Lucy and walked Toddy back to the farmhouse. It was egg gathering time, and Jip didn't want Sheldon to think he had forgotten. He didn't want Sheldon getting jealous of the attention he was given to the newcomers. For a long time it had been just Jip and Sheldon, and now it was Jip and Pud, and Jip and Toddy. Sheldon had already complained about too many Jip and somebody else's. Sheldon wants Jip to himself, huh? Jip took Toddy into his maw. Jip took Toddy into his maw and began to look for Sheldon, who was nowhere to be seen. He made another circuit around the house and yard to make sure. Then he heard the squawks and protests from the henhouse. "Oh, Sheldon, don't go and try to gather them eggs on your own." He ran to the henhouse, opening the door to find a terrified Sheldon with an angry brown hen crowning his skull. Pecking at his skull. She was flapping her wings and pecking at his sparse hair and pale head. In Sheldon's big hand was a smashed egg, the yellow running down through his fingers and onto his shirt front. "Jip, help me!" "Oh, Sheldon," Jip said. He reached up and lifted off the angry hen, smoothing her feathers and shushing her furious arts until they subsided into annoying clucks. He placed her gently into her usual nesting box. "Arabella don't like me," Sheldon said. It ain't that, Sheldon. I think you was just too quick for her. Scared her, that's all." "Scared me?" "Yeah, works both ways, I reckon." Jip grinned up at his friend. The poor fellow was close to tears. How about you put that mess down and we clean you up? Sheldon looked unhappily at the smashed eggshell and the yellow goo on his hands and shirt. Outside, where the stink won't matter. I guess we better go wash you at the pump. Then we'll gather up the rest of these eggs. Will you help me, Jip? Sure. You and me together, Sheldon, I promise. Lucy was standing just outside the henhouse door. She was pretending to study the empty road as they came out, so he didn't speak to her. And that's the end of chapter 4. So today I put on Class Dojo as an activity that I want you to complete. I want you to list 10 things you know about Jip from the first few chapters of reading this book. All right? So you can think of things that you know about Jip as a person. You can think about things that have happened to Jip, or about Jip, about where he lives, or what we know about his background. Okay, 10 different things that you know about Jip. Okay, it can even be things like he's really good with animals, or he's really kind, or everybody wants to be his friend, or Sheldon loves him, things like that. Okay, 10 different things that you can say that you know about Jip, the character Jip. All right, I'll be right back shortly with chapter 5.